Hello and thanks for joining us for our mid-morning edition of Arirang News. I'm Mark Broom. Let's kick things off with a look at the day's headlines. The South Korean envoys that sat down with President Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un head to China, Japan and Russia to get them up to speed on the hastily arranged talks between Washington and Pyongyang. South Korea's finance minister urges the Trump administration to reconsider its steel tariffs on the country amid concern it could severely damage the local steel industry. Plus, China's Communist Party passes a constitutional amendment that removes presidential term limits, allowing President Xi Jinping to stay in office for as long as he wants. So first they visited North Korea, then the United States, and now the special envoys of South Korea are leaving for China, Japan and Russia to brief the leaders of Seoul's neighbouring countries of the outcome of their visit to Pyongyang as well as the U.S. capital. Let's connect straight away to our Blue House correspondent Hwang Ho-jun, who's on the phone for us. So Ho-jun, it has been and will continue to be a hectic week for the special envoys.
That's right, Mark. It's been less than 24 hours since the special envoys came back from their trip to Washington to meet with the U.S. President Donald Trump. And now the special envoys are taking separate trips. As we speak right now, President Moon's top security advisor, Eui-hyun, heads to Beijing to meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping later and will then fly to Moscow, although his meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin is yet to be confirmed. The head of the nation's intelligence agency, Eui-hyun, is set to fly out to Tokyo this afternoon and meet with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe on Tuesday. Now, the special envoys will be delivering the outcome of their monumental Pyongyang visit to the leaders of each country, as they did to U.S. President Trump, including the fact that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un promised to return to the negotiation table, willing to discuss the denuclearization in exchange for security guarantees, and that Pyongyang would stop nuclear and missile testing while recognizing that the South Korea-U.S. joint military exercises will continue, not to mention the historical summit meeting scheduled for April between President Moon and Kim Jong-un as well. Kinzhal will also further explain the results of their Washington visit, where President Trump agreed to meet with Kim Jong-un by May if North Korea takes concrete steps that would reflect such promises. Back to you, Mark.
Well, thank you very much for that report, Ho-jun. That was Hwang Ho-jun at the presidential office on the flurry of diplomacy ahead of those two key summits between the two Koreas and then after that between the US and North Korea. Now, of the many prerequisites of the landmark summit between the leaders of the United States and North Korea is agreeing on the venue for the talks. While the White House is not ruling out either Washington or Pyongyang, many are pointing to a third country location, with South Korea deemed one of the most likely options. Kim Hyo-sun tells us more.
With President Trump agreeing to meet North Korean leader Kim Jong-un face-to-face by May, the possible location of the summit is garnering much attention. Kim could be traveling to Washington, according to White House Deputy Press Secretary Raj Shah, who explained to American broadcaster ABC that no location is being ruled out. Although it's not considered likely, he also said President Trump could even fly to Pyongyang for the summit, adding that the time and place need to be decided. Meanwhile, an official at South Korea's presidential office said on Sunday that the joint security area of Panmunjom, located on the demarcation line separating the two Koreas, is one of the likely venues for the summit. The official told reporters that Panmunjom, where the leaders of the two Koreas will meet next month, would hold a significant meaning, as Washington and Pyongyang are the directly involved parties of the truce agreement on the Korean peninsula. The New York Times also reports that Panmunjom could play host to the landmark summit. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
Now, South Korea's top economic policymaker has sent a letter to his U.S. counterpart to urge the Trump administration to exempt South Korea from stiff steel tariffs that could seriously hurt local exporters. Korea's finance ministry says Minister Kim Dong-yeon's letter to U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin expresses Seoul's concerns over the move. Kim said Korea's steel and auto-making businesses have created jobs in the U.S. through investments in the country, and Seoul hopes the new tariff measures don't harm bilateral relations. The finance minister also plans to meet with Mnuchin at next week's G20 finance ministers meeting in Argentina, where he's likely to convey the message once again. And South Korea has vowed to use all possible means to counter the impact stemming from U.S. trade protectionist measures on imported steel and other Korean products. Finance Minister Kim Dong-yeon says there's a high chance similar measures could be carried out by other countries, as well as policy normalization of interest rates. He also said the government will be finalizing by June on whether South Korea will be signing the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership. The deal is a mega free trade pact signed by 11 former members of the TPP after the US pull out. The Special Public Advisory Committee on the Constitution under the Presidential Commission for Public Planning will be finalizing the draft government bill on constitutional reform on this Monday. The draft, which includes key issues underscored by President Moon Jae-in, such as people's basic rights and decentralization of power, is also expected to include a 4-year presidential system. President Moon is expected to receive a report on the draft bill on Tuesday. He has previously called for a people-focused revision of the Constitution. Now, South Korea's chronically low birth rate is no longer exclusively affecting the infant age range. The issue is edging up the demographic scale, forcing elementary schools to shut, with fewer and fewer students. Even a school in Seoul, a capital city of more than 20 million people, is closing due to a lack of students. Cha Sang-mi with the story.
Saturday marks the 53rd anniversary of the opening of Eui Elementary School. But even before the celebration takes place, the history of the school technically ended on Tuesday as the parents of the last few remaining students decided to transfer their kids to other schools. The silence is deafening in an otherwise ordinary-looking schoolyard. Eui Elementary School in Seoul's northwestern Eunpyeonggu district is the first elementary school in the capital to shut due to the ongoing plunge in the number of students. Just looking at Seoul, the number of elementary school students has plummeted nearly 45% over the last 7 years, from 755,000 to a mere 428,000. An expert on demographics says 1 or 2 married couples deciding not to have kids can be an individual problem, but when the trend is rampant and spreading, it becomes a grave social issue. More and more couples in Korea are giving up on the idea of having kids, put off by the spiraling cost of raising children. Statistics Korea reported this month that Korea's total fertility rate, the average number of children born to a woman aged between 15 and 49 over her lifetime, fell to just 1.05 as of last year. That's one of the lowest rates in the world. The expert identified high educational expenses in Korea as the main factor behind the trend. Korea's chronically low birth rate and its rapidly aging population are two issues that are closely intertwined. Fewer babies mean fewer people of working age who will end up contributing to the economy. As the population ages, the expert says Korea's growth engine is steadily eroding away.
There are 2 ways to tackle it. First, the government can provide benefits to married couples starting a family. The other option is to allow workers from other countries to move here. However, the way they are treated and their working conditions should be considered carefully.
With the first elementary school closing in Seoul, the expert predicts more schools will be forced to shut in the coming years. In few years down the line, it's likely universities will also share the same fate. Cha Sang-mi, Arirang News.
Now for a look at stories making headlines around the world, and we're going to start in China. The ruling Communist Party has passed a controversial constitutional amendment that will remove the term limits for its leader. Let's turn to our Noah Adam, and who has been following this and other international news for us as always. So Adam, the almost unanimous vote on Sunday effectively allows President Xi Jinping to remain in power for the rest of his life. What else does it mean?
Well, Mark, it removes a system enacted by former Chinese leader Deng Xiaoping in 1982 that was aimed at preventing a Mao Zedong-type cult of personality and the dangers of one-man rule. President Xi has always been hailed as the most powerful leader since Mao, but Sunday's vote has made that official. He had claimed that the constitutional changes were what the Chinese people and the ruling Communist Party wanted. Although most of the public favour the move as providing stability and allowing President Xi time to see through his agenda of fighting corruption and ending poverty, others are more wary. Some critics suggest it could make President Xi politically vulnerable in the long run. Those concerns are mostly based on the fact that during the era of Mao Zedong, many poor decisions were made due to vicious infighting within the Communist Party. Others are concerned about a return to increased political repression throughout the country, which has already become apparent. Any comments on social media expressing opposition to Sunday's move have been scrapped by China's censored internet, and critics say they have been pressured by the government to stay silent. As well as a tighter grip on power, Xi has long promoted a strong military and has made rapid advancements to his armed forces. That, along with the prospect of a lifelong Xi leadership, could see other countries on edge, as it could allow him to act more aggressively on China's territorial claim in the South China Sea. With Japan marking the 7th anniversary on Sunday of a deadly earthquake and tsunami that killed more than 15,000 people and triggered a nuclear meltdown, the area itself is still struggling to get back on its feet even after all these years. Our Eui-hyun reports.
March 11th, 2011, at 2:46 p.m., a magnitude 9.0 earthquake, the biggest ever recorded in Japan's history, and one of the 5 most powerful earthquakes recorded in the world, struck off the coast of Miyagi Prefecture. The deadly tsunami that followed killed more than 15,000 people and triggered a nuclear meltdown at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant, rendering most of the surrounding areas uninhabitable. Fast forward 7 years, and although reconstruction has steadily progressed, more than 70,000 people remain displaced, still living in temporary housing. Some areas surrounding the nuclear plant continue to be too dangerous due to high radiation, and the decommissioning of the crippled reactors remain a problem for operators. It's a task that's likely to take decades and cost tens of billions of dollars. To mark the anniversary, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, along with Prince Akishino and Princess Kiko, took part in a ceremony in central Tokyo, while a moment of silence was observed throughout the nation at 2:46 p.m., the time when the disaster changed the lives of tens of thousands of people. Meanwhile, despite concerns over seafood contamination from Fukushima Prefecture, Thailand has become the first country to receive a shipment of fresh fish from the area, as a 110-kilogram shipment of fresh flounder was exported there late last month. This comes after the World Trade Organization upheld a Japanese complaint against South Korean import bans and additional testing requirements on Japanese seafood due to the Fukushima nuclear disaster, as Seoul vowed to appeal the ruling and keep the ban in place. Despite becoming the first country to import seafood from Fukushima, Thai consumers remain concerned as the shipment was meant to be served in sushi and sashimi dishes at a dozen Japanese restaurants in Bangkok. Lee-seung-jae, Arirang News.
In other news, Russia has released video footage of what it claims to be a successful launch of a new hypersonic missile. Moscow's defense ministry said the Kinzhal was launched from a MiG-31 aircraft on Saturday and that it had successfully hit its target. The Kinzhal is said to travel at 10 times the speed of sound and has a range of 2,000 kilometers. The footage comes about a week after President Vladimir Putin boasted his country's new and advanced nuclear superweapons. British health authorities are urging hundreds of people who visited a pub and restaurant in Salisbury to wash their clothes after traces of a nerve agent used to poison an ex-Russian spy were found. Sergei Skripal and his daughter, who remain in critical condition, was said to have eaten at the Italian restaurant Zizi earlier this month, with traces also found at the Mill pub. Furniture from both locations have all been destroyed and the premises may be closed for a few weeks. Health authorities said there was little risk of harm to fellow diners, but added that possessions should be washed as a precaution.
So let's turn our attention to the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Paralympic Games, and South Korea won its first medal on Sunday, with Eui-hyun winning the 15-kilometre sitting cross-country bronze after finishing fifth in the 7.5-kilometre biathlon event on Saturday. Shin on Sunday grabbed third place in the event with a final time of 42 minutes, 28.9 seconds. Meanwhile, two North Korean Paralympians made their debut in the same event. Mayu Chul and Kim Jong-hyun finished 26th and 27th respectively out of 27 competitors. Until Pyeongchang 2018, North Korea had only appeared at two Summer Paralympics, London 2012 and Rio 2016. Over to para ice hockey now, and South Korea have continued their winning ways, this time with a dramatic overtime victory over the Czech Republic, and it happened on Sunday. Tied 2-2 after 3 periods, South Korean forward Jung Seung-hwan scored just 13 seconds into overtime, giving the South Koreans the 3-2 victory and their second win in preliminary play. With the win, the host nation sits comfortably atop Group B and is on the verge of qualifying for the Paralympic semi-finals for the first time in history. And finally, to wheelchair curling. South Korea's mixed wheelchair curling team is looking to mirror the success of the Garlic Girls during last month's Winter Olympics. After defeating USA and the neutral Paralympic athletes of Russia on Saturday, South Korea faced off against Slovakia on Sunday to rally back from a 5-4 deficit after 6 ends to win 7-5 for their third victory in a row. The 3-0 record leaves them tied with Canada and China at the top of the round-robin group.
Korean traditional embroidery shows the ultimate art of handicraft. With every stitch epitomizing the labor and dedication required, this traditional legacy is gaining momentum once again with slick 21st century allure. Let's discover the beauty of Korean traditional embroidery. This gallery is on Gangado Island, Incheon. A collection of over 100 pieces of Korean traditional embroidery has been on display since January, representing the zenith of Korean handicraft.
This exhibition has been organized to highlight the value of traditional embroidery through Lee Jung-suk's artistry, which offers a modern twist to Korea's cultural heritage.
From norige, a Korean traditional ornament for the hanbok, to the traditional wrapping cloth bojagi, all kinds of everyday props become pieces of art with colorful embroidery. With its origins dating back to Cro-Magnon days, embroidery is commonly found in both Eastern and Western countries. Still, Korean traditional embroidery is in a league of its own, with voluminous and dynamic impressions created by multiple twisted strands of silk thread. Royal costumes offer the quintessence of Korean embroidery. Hwarot, a princess's bridal robe, and a ceremonial coronet are also decorated with silk flowers patterns.
I rarely see these types of embroidery pieces because they're less today, and I live in the city.
I was impressed by the labor and dedication each stitch captures. I really enjoyed the artworks.
All these colorful, exquisite pieces have been created by one master artisan. It's Lee Jung-suk, with over 40 years of her life dedicated to traditional embroidery.
I believe tradition has the greatest global appeal. With that in mind, I decided to take up embroidery again in my 40s, which I used to do in my 20s as a hobby. My new goal is to globalize this cultural heritage using traditional techniques and develop it into an appreciated form of art.
Since inheriting the Korean cultural asset, she's been putting a modern twist on the traditional heritage, which used to only feature the country's 5 basic colors, called 오방색, red, black, blue, white, and yellow.
This is an embroidered wedding pojagi, a Korean traditional wrapping cloth with phoenix. I had a hard time embroidering the gradation, but I really enjoyed the whole process.
This is E's studio, where she spends most of her day. She's been busy decorating lucky bags. Production time varies depending on the size and complexity of embroidery, ranging from 5 to 6 hours to 4 to 5 years.
이게 고요할 때는 바늘이 이제 천을 통과하는 비단실 싹싹 소리가 나.
E combines traditional embroidering patterns and techniques with pastel-colored thread. The stark contrast between tradition and modernity further articulates the extravagant, voluminous, and exquisite qualities of embroidery, satisfying the taste of today's people.
The production process begins with coloring thread based on the signature traits of the piece. I color thread with chroma levels from 1 to 8 to create gradation, which is possible because I personally color it.
Back in 2014, E presented her pojagi to Pope Francis during his visit to Korea. With elaborate flowers and trees made of some 30 different colors of thread.
I didn't think much about the government purchasing my piece, but the favorable reception I got overseas made me realize that I underrated my artistry and needed to cherish it more.
These days, the artist is focusing more on her activities abroad, so Korean traditional embroidery can receive more recognition and appreciation from the world.
I have a 5-year overseas exhibition planned starting this year. Along with that, I'm going to keep embroidering as long as my eyes allow it and spreading my artistry to the world as long as my legs hold up. I'm working hard to pave the path for my juniors to show them the way.
In this technological era, it's hard to imagine dedicating months and years to creating a single piece of work. However, E endures that labor for the sole purpose of preserving Korea's cultural heritage and spreading it to the world. Every stitch captures labor and devotion. That craftsmanship is what makes Korean traditional embroidery a unique gift for the entire world.
Good morning. We'll still need to dress warmly for morning and evening commute, but highs will rise rapidly, meaning big gaps in temperatures. And this week, we'll notice warmer afternoon highs day by day. And for today, it would have been really nice for an outdoor activities if fine dust levels were normal to good. But it's going to be dusty throughout the day, especially on Jeju and in the Jeollado provinces. Sunny skies are expected for most of the day with a high of 14 degrees Celsius here in the capital, and Daegu will make it to 19 degrees this afternoon. And the rest of South will also see highs in the upper teens. Now, rain on Thursday will break the unseasonably warm temperatures, but still, even after the rain, we'll see readings above the seasonal averages. With that, let's take a look at the international weather for viewers around the world. While sunny skies with milder than average temperatures with high levels of fine dust will be the rule for the day. Many parts of North Korea will also see temperatures rising under some sunshine. And as for the rest of Asia, while China and South Korea are covered with high levels of fine dust, Japan will have moderate to normal air quality. Meanwhile, Perth is set to swelter under mid-30-degree heat, and the hot weather will ease from Thursday. Heading to North America, more snow is on the way early this week for the Washington, D.C. region, and it's going to be mostly cloudy with a slim chance of light snow on Monday. And as for South America, most cities will be under plenty of sunshine with mild to warm afternoon highs. Taking you to Europe, Stockholm will be rainy on Monday with some brief relief from the severe cold, but expect to see freezing conditions returning by midweek. Lastly, to Africa, winds will pick up in the mid-afternoon in Algiers. And that's all the weather update for now.
And that's where we're going to leave the news for now as well on this Monday morning here in Seoul. Our next bulletin is coming up at noon Korea time. So until then, goodbye.